And welcome everyone. This is the Mind Sculptors gameplay series. I am your host, Callahan, and I am joined again this week by my good friend Sickrobot from Into the North. Sick, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
You know what? I can't complain. I had strep throat last week.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so I'm back though. I don't know that I'd say that I'm feeling 100%, but I can talk. So we're there.
Did you get your larynx rebuilt like the $1 Million Man?
You know what? At this point, I've had strep enough times in the past year. They probably need to do that. But thank you for joining us this week, and we have a great episode lined up for you today. I'm really excited about this one, Sick. I'll tell you why. We've got three great guests on this week, as well as my favorite deck of all time. We're finally getting it. You're going to get to see it. So first up, we've got Braden from cEDH Cast. He is going to be playing Blue Farm or Timnacrom. We've also got Sage or Sage of Fables. You might know them on the YouTube as that. Did I just say the YouTube? Jesus. Anyway,
the internets.
I sound like my dad. But they are going to be playing Valky, God of Lies. Also joining us is Ian, also known as ComedIan MTG. He's going to be playing Belby. And finally, Fenix. He is going to be playing my favorite deck, Lavinia Omen Pool. So we've got a great episode lined up for you guys today. But before we jump into it, I do want to take a moment and just thank everybody for joining us as usual. If you do like this episode or any other episodes that we do, please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below. If you want access to our Discord server as well as some extra content, make sure to head on over to our Patreon at patreon.com/themindsculptors or check out the link in the description. And also, I said this last week, we finally have a TCG Player affiliate link. So if you want to help out the show when you're buying your cards, go ahead and check out that link down in the description. And we'll get a little bit of kickback from that. We greatly appreciate it. And I got to tell you, Sick, I feel like such a big boy channel every time that I talk about our TCG Player affiliate link. I feel very like you feel real.
You're doing
but anyhow,
moving up in the world. Yeah,
moving up in the world. You know, we actually, too, speaking of this, not to go too far off topic, but we did just hit 2,500 subscribers on YouTube. So really moving up in the world.
Big goal. Big win.
Yeah.
Huge W.
Yeah, every time I hit one of those milestones, it's exciting. But anyway, into the action we've got for you today. First up, I kind of want to jump into Sage's deck. They are playing Valky, God of Lies, and this is a deck that really a commander that I have been really excited about seeing. I've gotten to play against their deck a few times on Discord and different things like that. It's a pretty interesting list. So, Sick, looking at this deck and what it's trying to do, what is this Valky or Tibble, if you would, deck really trying to do?
So it's basically doing the thing that Rakdos does really well, which is it can't really play stacks. It doesn't really have options for control. Its value plan is iffy at best, so it does the only thing remaining, which is to go fast. Red and black generate a lot of mana.
Right.
And the black does a lot of the hard carrying in tutoring and playing win conditions, stuff like Ad Nauseam, the Abyss, Necropotence, all that good stuff. So yeah, you just sort of like look for your outlets and look for some mana and just cast a bunch of spells. Deck's pretty neat. It's got a bunch of sort of less than conventional rituals, just because you gotta make your 100 cards somehow. But we got stuff like Burgi, which is great. Love Burgi. Cole MVP. Got another Cole staple, Direfleet Daredevil. Love it. Got a weird one in Grinning Ignis in the creature suite, sort of neat. And just a bunch of other good stuff. I will call out though that I do love me some Overmaster. Card is great. Overmaster into Peer into the Abyss is hot.
Wow, that is really good.
It's incredibly hot.
Wow, that's a cantrip too?
It is a cantrip.
Wow.
Yep, you just fire that one off.
Well, that's really interesting. So what are some key things that you might want to be keeping an eye out for here in this game?
Really just the general Naz stuff here. There's a lot of mana rocks and stuff, and then a bunch of rituals and removal, like red removal-ish type stuff. But the things that you really have to be worried about here are like pure ad Naz necromutants. Potentially manual breach stuff, although it's a bit harder without blue, so you don't get the brain freeze stuff, so you're sort of forced into doing LED Wheel of Fortune. But still got to keep an eye out for it. And then you also sort of have to watch out sometimes, and this is why it's in the command zone, of just playing a Tybalt, and then upticking, and then upticking again, and then downticking, and suddenly the game's over.
We've talked about this. I don't know if it was you and I specifically. I think this might have been something in the podcast that we've talked about before. But the what's it called? The Tybalt is almost like Paco with removal stapled onto it.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, it's definitely more expensive and it's a bit more fragile just because you can hit it rather than Paco, which hits you. But it's definitely a pretty good backup plan in the command zone. You're sort of trading up, like the whole deck here is sort of, you're trading off sort of the consistency for the wins that come from being able to play stuff like World Gorger Dragon. And then especially if we compare it to sort of like what is typically thought of as the gold standard for Rakdos decks in Doomsday Grenzo with like very efficient one card, one cons, and your commander sort of enabling that. What you're sort of giving up in consistency and the ability to go for just cheaper-ish wins, you gain a fair amount in having top end for longer games if you just need to pump your mana somewhere and you have an outlet.
Interesting. Well, it'll be, I'm really excited to see how this deck performs in this pod, because we've got some interesting matchups for it. First up on the list, we're going to look at Ian's Belby Corrupted Stacks list. Now, this is Belby Corrupted Observer. And for those who have not seen Ian's video on this deck, what is this list doing and what is it really trying to accomplish?
So what Belby does is it's nominally symmetrical-ish, sort of. Basically what you're looking to do is most of the time with this list, look to land some sort of either one drop or cheap-ish card on turn one that you can get everybody to lose life on. So these are things that are actually sort of classic inclusions in Pauper of all places, but we're seeing them reoccur in this deck. So you'll see like in Pauper, it's like mono black aggro with a lot of stuff like you know, Thornbow Archer is a classic, Pulse Tracker, Night Market Lookout, that kind of stuff, just to get pings outside of like combat damage and instead deal it through non-combat means. But in this format, they ping one to all opponents, which is all Belby needs to make 6 mana in your post-combat main. So what you're really doing is you're playing one of those in turn one, turn two playing Belby, making 6 mana in your post-combat main phase, and then casting something like an Ugin the Ineffable or, you know, God Pharaoh statue, a favorite of yours.
Yes, big fan. Yeah, so this deck, you know, it's playing some interesting includes, you know, like you said, there's God Pharaoh's statue, which I think is starting to, among the stacks community, get more popularity, which I'm all about.
Especially sort of in the mud style stacks.
Yeah. In these decks that are going to be playing big mana and all those sorts of things, I cannot stress how good a God Pharaoh statue is. But it's also playing some interesting cards, one of which is Sanctum of Stonefangs. What is this doing for the deck?
It's basically, it's just another pinger. It is a 2-mana pinger, but it's basically just a pinger that isn't a creature and doesn't have to go through combat, so a bit harder to kill. But it's sort of just aligning along the same thing as, you know.
Oh, it's just lost life for each of your opponents who lost life.
Yes.
Wow.
So, you know, stuff like that. There's a Shepherd of Rot in here. Again, Pauper Classic, Pauper Zombies Classic.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff in here that enables that, and sort of some stuff that sort of tangentially enables Belvay. And then you got your big mana payoffs because Belvay makes a bunch of mana. And then you have some matter of win cons here that aren't just Godpharaoh's statue or Ugins or Karn or whatever, which is sort of your backup win cons are either getting a Hulk into play and sacking it, which there is a small Hulk package in here. And then you also have access to just manually doing Mycaeus Ballista or Mycaeus Triskelion combos, because you can just sort of cast Triskelion off of Belvay for basically free. And she also helps discount casting Mycaeus, so, you know, it's reasonable. You also have an additional win con here to help lock out the game, which is Morelin plus Opposition Agent. Alternate Hulk pile, but also is fairly reasonable to assemble on its own. I mean, they're both creatures. You're in black-green. You have fairly easy access to them. So, you know, just all that good stuff. Yeah,
we saw that in your Viral's Hulk list when you were playing that against the Lab Maniacs a few weeks ago.
It's new tech.
Big fan. Well, moving on to our third guest of this week is Braden from cEDH Cast. He is going to be playing Timna Crom Blue Farm. And so, okay, everybody's familiar with Farm. Everybody, you know, has kind of been seeing it. It's very popular.
Just sort of playing the fun police here. Everybody else is playing their fun 2-color deck.
Yeah.
And Braden just chooses to play the not. Do the other thing.
So, as far as Blue Farm goes, what is this doing that's different from Rograk Farm, from Mardu Farm, all these other farm lists? Like, what is setting this deck apart?
It's really just I'm gonna be quite honest here. It's basically the least farm list. In fact, I'd venture to say it's not really a farm list. It's really more in the tradition of historically Grixis plus Storm decks. Okay. just with like better and less stormy win conditions. You're playing a bunch of like good fast mana, none of the bad fast mana, good payoffs and like Ad Naz, Pier, some Praetor's Grass stuff, Underworld Breach things, because again, it gets a lot easier when you have stuff like Brain Freeze for Lotus Petal combos and also just to up your density there. Then you also have some minor wheel synergies here because you'd be playing wheels anyway. It's sort of just like your good stuff, Grixis plus Storm list. Okay.
Now, one interesting card that I've been seeing a lot of people play, and I actually saw it pop up in the cEDH, what's it called? Essentials or whatever it is. Like the most played cards off the database is Teferi. Master of Time has started seeing a lot of play. And what is this doing? And I know you can uptick it every turn, and it can get real big really fast. But what is it adding here in this list?
It's sort of just grind power. You're not really getting much else out of it. Obviously, you can use it to downtick and phase out creatures, which is sort of nice. It's sort of like a Swiss Army knife type thing where on one hand, you can cast it reasonably early, not super early. It is double blue pips, so you're not going to be like casting it off of some busted crypt hand most of the time.
Right.
But you can like, if you're going to mull to an outlet, you can usually get it down like turn 2-ish if you're being pretty aggressive. But it's sort of just like a pressure thing where if nobody has pressure to get rid of it, eventually you just start taking 2 extra turns. Which, I mean, usually is going to win you the game, especially with value engines in the command zone. And then it's also just, it can just be a 4-mana creature removal spell sometimes, if that's just what you need, especially being able to be like something that you can commit to the board ahead of time and then downtick like on somebody else's turn to phase something out in response to them doing something can be nice. I gotta be quite honest, personally, I'm not a huge fan of it, but there are some merits to the card.
Okay. Well, and finally, we're going to go over to Fenix, who is playing Lavinia Omen Pool. And this is Fenix and I's list that we've been working on for the past couple of years. So for the people who are not aware of this list and what it's really doing, fill us in here, Sick.
Are you sure you want me to do this? I feel like you're just chomping at the bit to try to get to explain some of the cool stuff in this list. But no, I mean, I'll do it.
Go for it.
So basically, what Lavinia is doing is there's the sort of neat synergy combo thing of Lavinia Azorius Renegade saying that whenever somebody casts a spell without paying the mana cost, or paying no mana to cast it, or an opponent rather, it gets countered. So that means that if you do something like put a knowledge pool into play, or make it so that the only way that somebody can cast spells is by not paying mana for them, you effectively one-sidedly lock out the game. Now, it's like sort of half of one-sidedly locked out of the game, because you're still under the knowledge pool yourself. You just aren't getting all the knowledge pool things countered. But it's definitely like fairly accessible for blue-white, which is sort of what you want. Like one card combo with an artifact in blue-white is effectively all you can ask for like accessibility of a win condition. And then you also get some other neat stuff. Armageddon effects are really strong with Lavinia because the other effect where if you cast a non-creature spell with converted mana cost greater than the number of lands you control, it gets countered. So it stops people from like being able to rebuild after an Armageddon specifically, even if they already have Dorks or Rocks out.
Right.
Which is nice. And the rest of the list is sort of, I would say typical stack seek and trolley blue-white. The card pool, I'm sure you would agree, is fairly limited in those colors. So
yes.
there's only so unique that a blue-white deck can be from any other blue-white deck. But aside from that, it's basically, it's a stack C, one card win conny artifact-y, Armageddon-y blue-white list.
Yeah. It is one of my favorite decks, and it is getting to play the titular Jace the Mind Sculptor in it. So hopefully we'll get to see good old Jace. One thing I will add is in the Planeswalker suite, you do have Jace and Teferi, and those two cards, if you resolve an Armageddon with either of those two cards out, you're probably going to win the game.
Or Knowledge Pool. Or Omen Machine for that
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like any of those things, once you land, if you land a Jace Teferi, a Knowledge Pool, and manage to Armageddon or Ravages of War, your odds of winning the game are fairly high. Yeah. Some bad matchups are stuff like Najila,
Crom.
Penrith is really bad. Yeah, Crom's not great.
Anything they could put, basically, because the issue here is anything that can put combat damage on you from under the knowledge pool lock can be a bit frustrating, because there's definitely situations with this list where even if you get the knowledge pool down and you're now working toward casting spells, people can still like steal combo pieces out from under you with the knowledge pool by like casting their own spells. So if you like knowledge pool, everybody exiles the top three, and then you're like Teferi gets exiled, and you're like, oh, I want to cast that Teferi. So you cast one of your spells to try to exchange it for the Teferi. Somebody else can cast an instant, take the Teferi, try to cast it. It gets countered, and now you just don't have access to it. And then all the time they're doing that, you just get beat down by whatever miscellaneous Croms or Nagilas or whatever at the table. So there's definitely some restrictions behind it, but there are some considerations in deck building to sort of help get around that a bit.
I am personally more of a fan of Omen Machine in those situations, because now what happens when you play the Omen Machine is you're going, I'm going to play my cards against your cards. Oh, I have top deck manipulation too.
Yes.
So that's part of some of that. But anyway, I could go on and on and on about this deck for I've been working on it for a very long time. It's like you and Hulk, right? It's like either of us could get talking about it and then we'll never shut up. So anyway, going over into the turn order, Sage did win the die roll. They will be going first. Second is going to be Braden. Third is going to be Fenix. And fourth is Ian. Looking at their opening hands, oh dear. Ian had to mulligan down to 4 cards. His opening, it's not a good time. His 4 cards are Chalice of the Void, Mox Opal, Swamp, and Godpharaoh Statue, and he did bottom Veil of Summer, Pattern of Rebirth, and Tender Shoot Dryad. So you're going last. You had to mulligan down to 4. How are you feeling with this 4?
Not great. Can we short about that one? Your turn 1 plays consist of hoping you draw a 0-red artifact, and then maybe you can get a turn 1 Belvay, which honestly probably isn't even that great, considering that other people have been being able to use Belvay better than you for the most part, I assume here. So realistically, you're just sort of hoping to draw like a pinger, I guess, and then zero mana artifact in that order so that you can do your turn to battle-based stuff, but without that, you're just sort of stuck on like playing a Chalice on 0 eventually if you don't draw another land or whatever. So,
right.
You know.
It's rough, but those bottoms, you look at the four cards he kept, and you're like, oh, that's a really bad 4, and then you see he bottomed Veil of Summer, Pattern of Free Birth, and Tender Shoot. You're like, all right, well, maybe that's...
I mean, this hand at least gives you outs.
Right. So we'll see exactly how that works out for Ian. Moving over to the third spot is Fenix. He kept a 6-card opening hand. That opening hand was Hengegate Pathway, Transmute Artifact, Enlightened Tutor, Phantasmal Image, Lotus Petal, and Chalice of the Void. So you're going third, which is really unfortunate. It's not where you want to be playing when you're Lavinia. But how do you feel about this opening hand?
I feel pretty good about it unless Ian chooses to play a Chalice on 0 turn 1.
Yeah.
In which case this gets a lot harder to play and becomes pretty miserable. But if he doesn't, then you have access to a turn 1 Chalice, which is pretty good.
Well, no, he's going before Ian.
Oh,
his turn's before Ian.
Yes, of course. In which case, yeah, great hand. You have access to a turn 1 Chalice. I'm not sure how much you want to, especially because you probably want to fire off that Enlightened Tutor before the Chalice here.
Right.
But it definitely does have access. You're sort of waiting on gas a bit. The Transmute Artifact can get you with enough mana up to a lock. But you're going to need a bit more mana for that, considering that all your artifacts are 0 CMC, especially if this Enlightened Tutor is going for a crypt, which I sort of assume it is. But, you know, there are, again, outs in this hand that definitely get you there, and it's positioned to be able to draw pretty well.
Yeah. Well, we'll see exactly how my best girl Lavinia does in this matchup. Going second in the turn order is Braden. He did keep his first 7. That 7 was Mana Vault, Mystical Tutor, Underground Sea, Windswept Heath, the Empiric Tutor, Force of Will, and Time Twister. So we were talking about this a little bit before we went live here, and you were saying it felt like it was a little bit of an awkward.
I was saying the mana is a bit awkward here.
Okay.
But it's sort of mitigatable. I think the only way that I can foresee really playing this hand, just because of how nuts it is going for a turn 1 Mana Vault and then vamping it upkeep for like a Crypt and then casting the Time Twister on turn 2 with Force of Will pitching Mystical Tutor as backup. Right. Because that seems pretty nuts to me. I don't know. Having a Mana Vault and Mana Crypt out and then wheeling on turn 2 seems not bad. IMO. You can also play this in a bit of a different way where you can like turn 1 Mana Vault, turn 2 vamp for like an Op Agent, I guess. You really need to have more mana for it though, because if you're going to do that, that means that you're probably either like you're really locked into needing to draw a mana source the turn afterward. So it's a bit risky. Especially because you're probably gonna have to use the Mana Vault to cast the Op Agent. Or it's not Op Agent, sorry. Hull Breacher, rather.
Right.
But yeah. I would say that the turn 1 play here is probably gonna be like Underground Sea, cast Mana Vault, upkeep, vamp for something, and then wheel.
Okay. We'll see exactly what Braden decides to do here on his opening turn. Going to the player in first is Sage. They did keep a 5-card opening hand. Their hand was Soul Ring, Simian Spirit Guide, Command Tower, Desperate Ritual, and Badlands, and they did bottom Faithless Looting and Verdant Catacomb. So you're going first. You know what you're playing, what you're up against. How do you feel about this?
Not super great, but there's definitely stuff that can be going on here. You're a mana away in this hand from casting the Tybalt side of Valky.
Right.
Which is not bad. Turn 2 Valky can definitely get there and gives you a lot of cards every turn. That being said, I'm not sure how great the quality of the cards in everybody else's library are for this deck. There's a Belvay deck and a Lavinia deck that, like, you really, there's not a lot in those decks that you actually want. So I'm not sure how great that's going to be, but if you do draw, like, any other piece of fast mana here, then you get a turn 2 Tybalt, or turn 2, Tybalt, assuming that there's no Chalice of the Void on 1 coming down, which neither person is like realistically really representing.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I'm fine with this. This is definitely a better 5 than a lot of hands. So
right. Well, we will see exactly how this goes down. We're going to take a quick time out, and we'll be right back on the other side. This is the Mind Sculptors gameplay series. One. And welcome everybody back to the Mind Sculptors gameplay series. I'm Callahan. He is Sickrobot, and Sick, we were talking about here in the pregame that Sage is in a position where she might be, or they might be able to go right into a turn 2 Valky, but it really kind of depends on what these Chalice players, because we know they don't know this, but we do know that Lavinia and Belby both have Chalices in those open hands. So,
yes,
it could be very rough for them if those Chalices come down.
It could be exceedingly terribly rough even.
Yeah. So going into this with neither of us have any knowledge about what's going on. Who do you have your money on to really come out of this game ahead?
I'd probably pick Braden here if we don't see Chalices. If we do see Chalices, it gets a bit more iffy, especially if you're going to be going for wheel stuff, because then that turns off both of your tutors. And that's what the hand is sort of resting on, especially with like just having a vault out. Then you're sort of locked into, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to check this first before I come up with this line. Yeah, so there's not even a plateau here, which makes this mana very awkward, because that means that you can't even go for a turn 2 Crom if there is a Chalice. Because you have a Windswept Teeth as your second land, which doesn't produce red. So, like, if you don't draw a red source here and a Chalice on 1 comes down on turn 1, then you're sort of dead in the water for a while.
Right. Well, we will see exactly what goes on. We have a longer match for you guys today, so strap yourselves in, and we're going to head on over into the opening hand, or the opening of the game here. Nobody has any pregame effects, as we know. So Sage is going to go ahead and draw their first card for turn, and we'll see if they drew another piece of 0 mana gas. So we got Badlands, land for turn. We're kind of waiting to see. They're kind of deciding which way they want to go with this. If you are in Sage's position, what do you think you're doing, Sick?
Quite honestly, unless the math has hugely changed, just playing as Soul Ring and passing. But the weight here indicates to me that there's something else going on with that single draw that we saw. Right.
Let's see. We're still kind of waiting here. They are deciding and mulling over what to do. So if you had to guess what they saw, do you think it's I would assume it's not a 0 mana rock. Otherwise, they probably are just slamming it.
Well, they can't slam Valky with a 0 mana rock unless it's exactly Mana Crypt here. Okay, so this is a Soul Ring. I think we're seeing a pass. Yeah.
Yep, pass over to Braden.
So it's likely, I'd say, either like a 1 mana spell that they had to choose between the Soul Ring and something, or potentially thinking of like giving up the chance at the Tybalt at all and spending some fast mana to cast like a sort of a mid-sized like Force CMC spell.
Gotcha. All right. Well, Underground Sea from Braden. And there comes the Mana Vault, exactly as you predicted, and he's going to pass it over to Fenix. He's going to draw for turn. Let's see what Fenix gets here. Oh, so he is playing the backside of the pathway. And he's just trying to get it out of the sleeve, the blue side.
That means we're probably seeing a turn 1 Chalice then, because that locks you out of Enlightened Tutor.
Yep.
Oh, turn 1
we're seeing Lavinia.
All right. So this one is sort of strange to me, unless specifically he drew a white producing land, because now you, from what we know, he's locked out of the Enlightened Tutor.
Right. So he is going to pass it over to Ian, and we'll see if Ian draws anything good. I mean, I imagine really just drawing anything right now for Ian's got to be great.
Yeah. Of note that Lavinia is actually a major issue for Sage, because Tybalt is not a creature spell, and in fact costs 7 mana, and Sage does not have 7 lands in play, and won't have 7 lands in play for a long time. So,
right. So Ian did just play a swamp and passed, so I imagine he did not see anything too good.
Yeah, with Lavinia in play now, you don't get to play that Mox Opal, and things are going to get a lot harder.
I imagine that the Lavinia on turn 1, which you do generally want to see, was probably to attack the Valky and in those sorts of things.
Well, I mean,
so we are going to see Valky.
Yeah, with the Lavinia in play, you can't cast the Tybalt anyways, so...
Right.
I'm assuming it's more to sort of help shut Braden down a bit. The analysis was possibly that you want the Lavinia in play more for the potential early Omen Pool lock.
Right.
Oh.
So we're seeing... Oh, Jessica's Will.
Oh, we're seeing reveals for
Braden.
Valky. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha. Yeah, so it looks like Braden picked up a Jessica's Will. Not great, currently.
Chalice, we know that for Fenix.
Yeah, looking like...
Looks like he drew a
Cosima.
Cosima.
Yeah.
Which does a really good job.
If you can cast it.
If you can cast it.
Which it doesn't look like he can. Yeah, I'm not super happy about this one. Oh, it looks like Eden did draw another land, which is good. Yeah, I'm not super happy about that turn 1 Lavinia then, because you just sort of locked yourself out of casting the Eternal, or the Enlightened Tutor for a while if you can't draw a white land.
Right.
Obviously, like, you probably have a couple of turns, but if you don't draw a mana source next turn, you're hurting pretty bad, because that means no Chalice for you. And if you miss the turn after that, then you're really in a hole.
So we're going over to Braden's turn.
Yeah, so this is where Braden is really wishing that he had put a Plateau in his deck. But he didn't, and we're going to have to deal with that fact. So he probably really, really doesn't want to tap the Mana Vault to cast a Tymna, but it might be the only choice right now.
Yeah, getting something on the board. It's interesting that Valky hit absolutely nothing.
Well, it hit the Phantasmal Image from Fenix, actually, but...
Oh, excuse me.
It does not matter, because turning Valky into Phantasmal Image is not a good call most of the time, unless you want to kill it off and use it as a sack outlet to recast Valky, which, I mean, to be fair, there wasn't a lot of gas in that hand. Maybe that is the play at some point, but, you know.
Right. So let's see exactly what Braden is going to be doing. He is fetching. And so here, based on his land, what are you probably fetching up?
Oh, you're definitely getting a Tundra here. I don't think there's a whole lot of worlds where you're not getting a Tundra. Like, Scrubland is a possibility, sort of, but not something I'd be super happy with.
Yep. There's a Tundra.
Yep. Especially so that you can potentially hold up blue mana at the same time as casting something else, because holding up blue mana is usually the mana that you do want to hold up if you're holding up any mana at all.
So let's see exactly what he's doing. He is just, there it is. There's that Tymna that you were calling there.
This is sort of the I really don't want to do this, but I'm going to cast this Tymna anyway. Tymna. I know the feel. I've cast some bad Tymnas in my time.
Oh, man. Let's see, we're going...
Yeah, no land from Fenix this turn. This is... You're now hurt and bad, and if you miss the next one, you're going to be in a hole. We might see a Chalice out of Ian here. Yeah, there it is.
Chalice on one.
Braden's going to be kicking himself for casting the Tymna now because you definitely took some time to make that decision, and you immediately hate yourself for making that decision because now you can't cast either of the tutors in your hand. And the wheel's not going to do much.
Chalice on one, Lavinia out. Ian is going to be doing some of Phoenix's dirty work for him.
It's that way.
Let's see what Sage is going to be doing. Imagine any Tymna attacks will be going at Ian since well, actually, maybe it goes at Fenix since Fenix probably doesn't want to plot.
Probably doesn't want to give up that Lavinia in any shape or form anytime soon. That being said, Ian is playing the more life-intensive deck. Is going at Braden, I'm assuming. Yeah.
So this is going at Ian.
Oh, that is quite interesting to me. Yeah, this seems dangerous, actually. Even with the Lavinia and the Chalice in play, it only really takes one of those going away until the Nas deck can actually sort of get off the ground. You can't work your way through both of those, obviously, because that basically constitutes every single mana positive play in your deck. But only one of them, there's definitely ways to get around that.
Right.
So I definitely, I'd be interested.
The Tymna is going at Ian as well.
Yep. Not surprised about that. Sage is not going to be casting Nazes anytime soon. Thankfully enough. That being said, I am sort of surprised there wasn't 2 damage going their way. Just because it is, I think, a more life-intensive deck than Ian's deck. It is playing Adnaz, Necro, all that good stuff, where Ian is decidedly not on Adnaz because he'd probably die within the first, 5 flips or so. Looking at the curve list.
So Braden drew his card off of that Tymna. We'll see exactly what he's going to be doing. Simian Spirit Guide. Okay. All right.
Did not know about that one, but we'll see.
Ooh, so he cannot cast the.
Yep.
He forgot about the Lavinia.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yep.
Yep.
Looks like playing against Lavinia. I have lost count of how many times my opponents have done that.
Yep.
Where they're like, I'm gonna do this. I was like, you can't.
You can't do that.
I really hope that Phoenix is actually just playing
for discards. That does not feel good.
I really hope that he didn't draw land.
Yeah, so again, as I was saying, you're really in the hole now. You're not
Yeah.
You now don't really have good plays from what we know in his hand. He might have drawn some good cards, but you don't have anything to transmute artifact away. The Chalice of the Void on 1 is redundant. You don't have a Phantasmal image anymore. Enlightened Tutor is turned off by the other Chalice. So, yeah.
Let's see exactly what they got going on. So we're on Sage's turn. And the Valky this time is coming at Braden.
Yeah, that's sort of more in line with what I would have expected.
So, and it sounds, listening to the table, it sounded like the table was telling them that was the correct attack.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to go to Braden's turn. And we'll see what he gets here. Not another land. And so he is going to be attacking Sage this time.
So the funny thing about this is I think these attacks are actually, they're what I advocated for in last turn, but I don't think they're actually that correct anymore. Reevaluating now with the Sylvan Library out.
Right.
Yeah. I think you just have to pressure the immediate life total, especially since the ad nauseas were sort of like a down the road, like, yeah, they were sort of a down the road proposition for when the stack species went away or when they could build up the mana and land drops to actually be able to cast them. Now with a Sylvan Library on the board immediately, I think it might actually just be correct to just keep hitting Pelé.
Yeah. That Sylvan Library might really dig Ian out of a hole.
Yeah, it's sort of one of the best draws that you actually could have hoped for at this point, just to get yourself out of a bad mulligan.
Demonic Tutor from Braden.
Yeah. Honestly, wouldn't be surprised if this is going for a command tower, but we'll see.
That's why the Phoenix in the game chat did just say, he said, I really hope that Demonic Tutor is going for a land. I mean, and Braden's seen at least 4 cards over the last 2 turns and no land.
Yeah, just happens sometimes.
There's a very real possibility that he just is going for a land. And he's also remembering that there's a chalice on 1, so he can't get like a soul ring or anything like that.
Yeah. Also can't get a mana crypt because there's Lavinia, which is effectively a chalice on 0.
Yeah. Well, that's like I'm really hoping Phoenix is playing our one that we're working on instead of the primer that he sent me, because that list also plays Sanctum Prelate. And so we just go like Lavinia, Chalice on 1, Prelate on 2, GG.
Definitely not a bad proposition. Looks like Braden found. Okay, there we go. Got his pick.
He said he promises he did not tutor for Ancient Tomb, but he's playing Ancient Tomb as land for turn.
Ancient Tomb's an interesting one to me, just because I'm not sure how much you can actually use the additional mana right now.
Right.
I guess the goal here is just to Crom next turn, which makes a fair amount of sense.
Yeah. Playing Crom next turn, because he does have the Simian Spirit Guide in hand, actually seems fine.
Yep. You would have liked it a lot better on turn 2, but turn 4, or what is this? I don't even know. Turn 5, turn 4. I don't know what turn it is. It's fine.
I think it's turn 4.
Yeah, turn 4 sounds reasonable. That being said, everybody's missed land drops, so.
Yeah, and when Lavinia's at the table, missing land drops is never a good time. Yeah. So it really is going to change. And it's funny because every time I play Lavinia with you and Morgan, I always feel like you guys hit every single land drop you could possibly hit.
Well, Callahan, that would be because we build our decks correctly and put lands in them. Unlike these fools who are obviously only playing, what, like 15 lands apiece? I mean,
he got a Mox Opal.
Clearly demonstrated. Yep. Still not getting there because, yeah, Ian complaining that he can't cast his Mox Opal because there's Lavinia in play. Yeah, this still isn't great, but it's sort of getting there. Yeah, Chalice on 0.
He's just going to play a Chalice on 0.
Yeah. He's just hoping to, at some point, hopefully hit another artifact so you can cast 2 CMC spells.
He can, if he hits like a mana crypt or anything like that, he'll probably be able to start getting going.
Potentially. It depends on what he drew. You don't need, the rough part about this transmute artifact, first of all of your artifacts that you have so far are 0 CMC, so it's going to be an 8 mana transmute artifact to get up to an Omen Pool. And with a Crom at the table, that Omen Pool does not look like a hugely winning proposition to me.
Yeah. The knowledge pool lock might not be great. This might be a game where you're trying to go maybe for Urza to dig you out of a hole.
Yeah, you just like it's a single card. You don't really have tutors for it.
Right. The good thing is that you're at a table where I don't think is Ian playing like Curse Totem or Null Rod. I don't think so. I didn't mean to. Let's see. Is he playing? No, he's not playing Null Rod or Curse Totem. So like, you're at a table where you don't have to worry about your artifact mana being turned off. And Ian has managed to hit land drops and draw some gas.
Yeah. He's gradually getting to the point where he might just hardcast this God Pharaoh statue, which could be pretty nice.
Hardcasting, is that a 1 or 2 mana spell?
That's a 1 mana spell. It's called a Vicious Conquistador.
That should be countered.
Chalice checking himself. Gotta love it. Strictly illegal. Very not okay in the game rules. Let's see if anybody catches it. There we go.
There it is. Yeah. Fenix pointed that out. Fenix is out there being the Chalice police.
Oh yeah. If he can't have.
Oh, this is.
Yep.
This is awkward for Fenix having Chalice on 0. He can't cast Crypt.
Yep.
Or Mox Diamond or any. Well, I mean, Mox Diamond would be kind of bad right now, but he can't cast Soul Ring. Man, Fenix just has to get.
He has to get signets.
Start hitting land drops.
Signets for land drops.
He has to hit land drop before a signet because he can't use his.
Yeah, right.
Like because if you hit a land drop, you can turn your Mox Opal on by just casting the Omen Keel, the backside of Cosima.
Yes.
And so you can turn your Mox Opal on, which is nice, and then the Omen Keel will start to dig you for lands from other people's decks.
Lands. But yeah, you actually have to hit the land drop first, which it doesn't look like he has.
This is like the worst case scenario for Lavinia. The nice thing is you're playing up against some decks that are not creature heavy outside of the Crom just smacking you in the face.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if Sage will see it here, but I would have actually liked to have seen last turn activate Valky, making itself a copy of Phantasmal Image to make it like a 0/0, kill it off, and then recast it this turn to try to pick a creature out of people's hands. Because you've given them enough time to potentially draw. You can still do this now, actually, with the 2 mana from the Soul Ring, and then you have 4 mana in lands here. Because you've sort of given the table the time to draw into potential fatty creatures.
Right.
And being able to, like, snatch them out of hands. And sort of, it lets everybody reevaluate the open information, so. But I'm not sure that will be the play.
And this is going after Ian, I think. Yeah. Attack was at Ian, which seems correct. Now, if Braden is smart, he will probably want to go after Ian and Sage, the like decks that are more likely to win before him.
Yeah.
And then just kill Fenix with Crom. And there's Badlands there from Braden.
Doesn't even need to spend the SSG. What a guy. Yeah, this Crom is going to start accelerating some cards very quickly if it's not dealt with. The additional card off the Chimda being the biggest one, considering that nobody seems to be casting that many spells this game, but definitely is also a possibility that if somebody at some point has a turn where they do want to cast more than one spell in a turn, that could be an issue.
Savine's Reclamation targeting Polluted Delta.
This
all right
is a bit weird to me. This only makes sense in my mind if there's another mana source in hand aside from this SSG. Because I really wouldn't like delaying the Chroma turn here. Just to like make sure that you have a land drop to hit.
Let's see. So Braden wanted to get an island, it seems, because he is worried about a blood moon kind of ruining his day. But nobody's playing a blood moon. Yeah. Nobody's playing a back to basics. So I think this might have just been a little preemptive.
There's red. Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
just because Will targeting Fenix.
Fenix probably has more than enough in his hand.
Yeah, he has 5 cards in hand.
Yeah, there was Jessica's Will. Forgot about that one. So
he's choosing not to exile the top 3, which seems reasonable considering you're, only going to have 1 mana left over. And probably don't want to exile 3 cards. So 2 at Sage, 4 at Ian. And that's going to be his turn. Hey, he got a Misty Rainforest. Look at that.
Yep.
So I would bet the line here is get a Tundra, play the Omen Keel, and pass the turn.
Yep, wouldn't surprise me in the slightest here.
That is a good. That was precisely what you needed at that moment.
Yep, just about.
We'll see exactly which way he goes. I'm not exactly I know he drew that. I don't know what else he's been drawing.
Yeah, there's a bit of hidden information here that we're not privy to at this point. So there could be a completely different line, but we'll just have to wait and see.
I imagine, unless he got like a Signet or something. Is this the Omen Keel? There it is. Yep. There's the Omen Keel. He's just flipping it there.
We'll have to wait for a turn to actually cure it back, but I mean, any way to be hitting land drops here is nice.
Yeah, that is probably why he kept it, I imagine, could start getting him land drops and could potentially be a blocker.
Yeah.
Because this does block Tymna.
Definitely does. Unfortunately, it doesn't block
and it's only
Crom, which could become
it doesn't block Crom.
But yeah.
So we're going to go over to Ian's turn. Sounds like his 3 cards from the Sylvan Library were not good, based off of his reaction in the game chat.
Yeah, this is sort of a rough place to be in. You don't really want to take the life, but also if you're not hitting gas off the top of the Sylvan Library, like, I don't know.
You got to clean house.
You're so far away from being able to do anything if there's no gas on top.
Yeah, and that's what he did. He just went ahead and drew all 3 cards.
Yep.
So down to 13 life, and Ian's not in a great spot.
Yeah, this effectively puts you on 2-turn clock, so you have like your next turn to do something here. Static Orb helps.
Oh, and Snaring Bridge.
Is that? No, it's a Static Orb. That's a Static Orb.
Is that? Oh, yep. Static Orb. You're correct. Yep.
That helps.
Yeah.
Looks like you're probably still getting hit by Valky. And potentially a Crom, but it does stop Braden from casting spells if he wants to draw cards, so.
Whoa, excuse me. I got this new office chair and just fell backwards because I'm not used to it quite yet.
Just falling asleep on the job. I see how it is.
Hey, I just was like trying to lean back to crack my back, and this chair like goes up higher than my old one, and I was like, oh, I guess I can't do that in this anymore. So we'll see what we're getting here out of Sage. I don't think they see the line that you were talking about where activating it and getting some new information.
Yeah. It's definitely, and I wouldn't even say that it's like strictly the correct play here. It's definitely personal preference around, like if you actually value getting those, because it also increases the casting cost of potentially like the Tybalt if you want to cast the Tybalt instead. So this should be getting countered. I'm not sure if the table missed that here or
Imperial Seal. I think
so there is
somebody.
There's a Chalice on 1 here. We'll see if the table catches it.
I think she might have just caught it listening.
Ah. That would be tragic, because it's one thing to chalice check one person in like Legacy. It's another thing entirely to chalice check an entire table and get away with it.
3 people, yeah. And Fenix just pointed it out, and so they are going to have to shuffle up there. And oh man, that's rough.
Yeah.
Hey, gotta get that storm count up, man.
Oh yeah. Cast Grape Shot, get rid of the Timna.
You're cooking with gas once you do that.
Oh yeah.
Like it's all downhill from there. For
the record, deck is on Grape Shot, so that would have been a legal line of play.
That is true. It is on Grape Shot.
And yeah, it looks like Braden is prioritizing cards and combat damage here over actually being able to cast things. Although it looks like he also hit lands, so, you know, not a bad place to be under a static orb.
The rich get richer, huh?
Yep.
And it looks like Timna is going at Fenix.
That is
interesting.
I'm not sure if he already drew his card. If the Timna's going at Fenix, Fenix should have just been able to block that.
Oh, no, he went at Sage. Never mind. Okay, that makes more sense. I was confused.
Also just could have blocked that. Interesting.
City of Traders is land for turn.
That's certainly a good one.
That's... Ooh. He's got something. Let's see what he's casting. Is this a... Urza
Found it.
Has hit the table. This is exactly what you want to see.
Yep.
Urza is going to be really good in this situation. It's going to dig you out of the static orb.
To a degree, yeah. Unfortunately, you can't tap down other people's static orbs with your own Urza.
It's true.
So it doesn't make all static orbs symmetrical, but it will help you in the mana production department, and, you know, makes a big boy. You can get in damage with it.
Yeah, he's got a 4/4.
And the 4/4 is only going to get larger, and there's theoretically a point in time where this construct starts racing the Crom, especially if there's a static orb still in play for some of it.
Yeah.
So, yep. I mean, that's probably about the best hit in the deck at this point. So,
Urza is going to crew the Omen Keel, and Omen Keel is attacking Braden. And let's see what he hits. Flusterstorm, Imperial Seal, and a Wooded Foothills.
Hilariously bad hit for a land.
That is a really sad land to hit.
Hey, you never know. Ian might play an Urborg. In fact,
we've talked about
any
it.
of the other 3 players could play an Urborg theoretically in their color combination. I'm not sure any of them.
Believe it or not, we have
this.
legitimately talked about Urborg just because we play like Tabernacle.
Hilarious.
And I'm like, I don't think it's worth it, but
hey, it turns on fetch lines under Op Agent.
It's true.
Looks like
so we get
Ian on tap
land
more
for
than
turn.
No.
No, he had only tapped two lands to cast the static orb.
It is a 3-mana spell. He might have untapped one more than allowed, but that being said, I'm not sure he has much to. Actually, that's a lie. If he untapped,
there he
if
goes.
he untapped
noticed it.
yeah, okay, perfect. Because actually, I was about to say that actually could have been a huge difference, because that is the difference between like having a land drop and being able to cast Godfair statue or not.
Right.
Yeah, Tangle Wire is a good one, especially with the Static Orb in play.
Jeez. That's rough.
That definitely buys him some time.
Wow. So nobody is going to be attacking for a while.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And believe it or not, I think this buys the bottom of the board some time to like get their feet back up underneath of them.
Yeah.
So let's see. So let's see. So they are going to have Soul Ring, Valky, Blood Crypt, and the Pathway tapped. So let's see. Braden, it was advocating that they leave Valky untapped and attack Ian with it. But it looks like they were really more. Oh, nope. That's what they're doing.
So. I'm not sure you want Ian dead here as Valky. I feel like you want to buy time, because like you're gonna have issues trying to do things through Lavinia anyway, and I feel like having somebody else at the table that also coincidentally wants some stuff gone at least is nice.
Right.
Because you're definitely not the person at the table that's going to have stuff removed by Ian if he's going to remove stuff. So I am inclined to keep him around.
He's floating mana on his upkeep and intuition, floating a bunch of mana. And I think he is targeting Sage, so we'll see,
All right, let's see
what he is getting here.
He has Savines in the bin.
He does have Savines in the bin.
This is going to be rough, especially there's not like a whole lot of... Yeah, there's not a whole lot of ways to make the mana required here, so this might be like an intuition for next turn, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Or potentially the turn after that with the
Static
Orb in play, with the Static Orb and the Static Wire. This might just be
I think
intuition set up for like whenever the Tangle Wire goes away. Because sorry, there also is an LED in the bin as well, so
right.
Berkey Dockside.
Berkey Dockside to Fairy.
Grind game stuff. All right.
It looks like Braden has just kind of accepted that this is going to be a long game.
Yeah. Fear is definitely reasonable. I'm not sure how happy I am, but yeah, okay.
He's giving him the Teferi, and he's making him discard the Burgee and the Dockside. So, you know, you do have that Savines in the bin, but right now you're probably several turns away from really that ever being on the table.
Yeah. I think honestly I might have just given Braden a Dockside here. But I don't know. It's a hard call to make. Teferi seems fine. I'm not particularly worried about any of those if I'm at the table. It's just because they're so far away with the Tangle Wire in play. But
right. Effects on instep. Flashing in a Hull Breacher. All right. And Braden is discarding a Time Twister for turn. He's going to untap two things and tap everything back down.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
Yeah. City of Traders is gone, which is unfortunate, but that is part of why we like City of Traders in this list, is precisely what you saw in that last turn, is it can just power you out and stabilize you. Even for a turn, it can do a lot of work to just because that Urza goes so far.
So this Hull Breacher is actually going to do a fair amount of work here because
Urza Timna.
Yeah.
And the Sylvan Library, which granted he can't do anything with it, but
it's sort of more just like stopping Braden from drawing cards. Right. Drawing additional cards and like because I think the biggest danger here is Braden doing a lot of sculpting and then Ian dying, and suddenly the only thing stopping Braden from doing stuff is Lavinia and the Chalice. And if you have a win that bypasses both of those, then the game just sort of ends on the spot.
Right.
Like it's very reasonable that like Ian dies and then there's a Consult Oracle and suddenly nobody can do much about it.
Right. Yeah, I tapping the Chalice, the So Ian is just making sure that he's doing all of this correctly.
Yeah.
It is kind of awkward because, you know,
so
you have two effects that are doing similar things.
2 taps here, and then you get down tick and tap 3 things down. So tap those to you, and then sort of you really don't want to tap down the static orb here, so you're sort of priced into tapping down a land instead. That being said, I mean, I don't know.
It's not a great place for Ian. And Ian's really had a rough time. He had to mulligan down to 4, going in the last seat at the table, and it's just he is tapping down the static orb.
I mean, this basically telegraphs that he's trying to go for something really good this turn, because otherwise that just sort of deads you on board.
Right.
The rest of the table, unfortunately enough.
And passing the turn, and so he might have like an Abrupt Decay or Assassin's Trophy or something like that. So Sage is tapping down their permanents, tapping down Valky, tapping down the Badlands and the Pathway, or not the Badlands, excuse me, the Blood. Might as well be a Badlands.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. It's the same thing.
Yeah, tapping down creature and then letting Braden untap. All right.
Interesting.
Yeah, so Braden will just tap down 3 lands here. I think you're fine with just keeping your creatures open. I feel like he definitely wants Ian dead. Okay, yeah. So keeping the Timida tap down here makes sense because you're not swinging with it anyway. Because Hull Breacher out, and it only takes 4 to actually just kill Ian outright.
Right. And
Fenix,
casting a Grim Monolith.
Fenix is definitely pretty happy if Ian dies here. Not so much that, like, because it's sort of getting rid of stuff that's keeping Braden down. You're not exactly in a point where you can catch up yet. But he does like operating under not a static orb, so.
Right. And Braden is going to be getting a Burgee and a Dockside, and that's going to be making 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 treasures.
It's a bunch.
That's what it looks like. That is a lot of mana.
It's enough to cast basically anything that you want, including that Teferi that's in your hand. This is sort of why I wasn't a huge fan of giving them to Teferi, just because you can't Savine's back a Teferi. It is limited on the CMC that you can use it for.
Right. So still have the Underground Sea untapped. So let's see what we're getting. 10 treasures for Braden.
Yeah. So I'm assuming like 4 of these are definitely going toward the Teferi, and then
Talisman.
just I'm assuming the rest here are going toward casting whatever else is in his hand.
Right. He did cast the Lotus Petal.
Yep, it does profit a mana with a Birgie on the board, so not super surprised about that. Here's the Teferi.
Yep. Yeah, the Lotus Petal ends up being just like a ritual.
It's a Lotus Petal.
Birgie.
it's a roundabout way of making itself back into a Lotus Petal with a Chalice on the board.
It's either a Rite of Flame or just itself in this situation.
Pretty much.
Yeah. It's a Lotus Petal that only makes red mana, which is kind of unfortunate. But
yeah,
now the Teferi here is really interesting with the Tymna. Is if the Hull Breacher wasn't around, it would let him filter through cards on through that he draws off of Tymna and Crom, which is really nice.
That being said, there was a Hull Breacher in play, so this is definitely awkward. There's also a very real chance that it starts getting beat down. You're not super happy about this construct, like, just existing on the board for the most part, because it's definitely going to be putting some pressure on the Teferi. If not now, then, especially if Fenix starts drawing artifacts, I really don't think that deck can put enough power into play to outscale how fast the construct's just going to get larger.
Yeah. I mean, Jesus, that list plays 19 artifacts.
Yeah.
So
there's a very real chance that you start activating Urza at some point in the near future, which is basically getting you up to 2 draws a turn toward artifact count.
Right.
You're definitely not swinging with the construct right now, because you're sort of just giving Braden the out to get rid of it and then recast Crom, because you just have enough lands as is plus the treasures. So
upticking. And that'll give Fenix a treasure.
Oh, wow.
Also makes his construct a 5/5.
Just getting loyalty up, I guess. That's interesting.
Here is what's super gross, and I don't think anybody's going to realize this, is with the Urza out, he is not inclined to sacrifice those treasures. That is correct.
Those are just Mock Sapphires now. Hull Breacher is just producing permanent mana. So even more incentive not to try to draw cards, but apparently Braden is going to be a greedy boy and just give Fenix Mock Sapphires.
That is... And also tapping down the Chalice.
Yep, this is all reasonable.
So let's see. So he's go to draw. Fenix is going to draw for turn. And so Fenix went from being really screwed on, especially with the Ancient Tomb he just drew, went from being screwed on mana to having an abundance of it.
Sort of what Urza and Hull Breacher do in tandem, yeah. I'd say it's not bad.
So,
depending on what's in his hand, I would not be surprised to just see Urza activation here, but I also wouldn't be hugely surprised to see a Transmute Artifact, which is
Transmute Artifact.
I'm assuming we're going to see this probably shed the Chalice.
I would probably sack the Chalice.
Yeah, it's not doing a whole bunch here. It's basically just being a redundant Lavinia effect. Lavinia is handling the exact same thing, and you can always recast Lavinia if it gets removed. There's an argument to sack the Omen Keel to make it a bit easier on your mana here, and you can go for something larger, but, you know.
Man, but keeping the Omen Keel around just because of the fact that it can block and get you more mana.
The only thing about that is that, like, you're sort of good on mana at this point, and you already have the construct block, so theoretically, like, if you have something else to be doing with the mana this turn that's high impact enough, I'd be fine with sacking the Omen Keel. So tapping all of it looks like just gonna see a lock here. That's super interesting to me.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess if we go through, because this gets very weird very quickly. So the Teferi can break the lock periodically by phasing out the Lavinia, which basically lets Braden cast stuff from under the pool whenever he needs to. If you can't pressure the Teferi into being dead this turn, which you can't, you just can't get enough damage through. So this is a very soft lock. There's not like this isn't going to fully end the game, but it does put you in position where, like you have the most,
it puts you in a favorable position at the very least.
But there's still a lot that can go wrong here, especially on the board right now. Like if Braden turns it off and finds an answer for the construct, then there starts being real questions about like, first of all, can you pressure the Teferi off of just like flickering out the Lavinia whenever he wants, and then also, yeah, like do you just start dying to Crom in that case too, right?
Right. So he hit top, looks like is the only relevant thing. Vampiric Tutor, which is really nice. I don't know what the other card is that he hit from
Land.
Ian.
Oh, from Ian.
Okay, Thassa's Oracle. Is that Force of Negation? I don't know what the third card is there from Braden. But hitting the Thassa's Oracle is really good.
Yeah, that
for
definitely
Phoenix.
helps. That's sort of one of the things that you're worried about under this lock is that like Braden just hits like the absolute nuts. You're not happy that it's still an exile and therefore is still castable, but you're happy that it's available to be taken away if you have another instant, or if somebody else has another instant for that matter. Yeah, so
they're just kind of
a huge deal here, I think, is that Phoenix
is kind of explaining how this all works.
Yeah. If you phase out the Lavinia and then remove the Hull Breacher, suddenly Teferi becomes very real, and you can then actually just phase out on demand because you can tick up on everybody else's turn and keep looting.
Right. It looks like it hit all land from Sage.
Hilarious.
And attacking attacking the Teferi, Dockside is going to block. Seems reasonable.
Super surprised about this, actually. It looks like the construct is only a 5/5, right? Right now?
It is, yes, so, I believe so.
If I was Braden, I actually definitely would have thrown the Crom in front of the construct as well, because the construct doesn't come back, but you can still cast...
So Braden phased out the Hull Breacher.
Weird. That's not something that I was expecting at all. It gets you one activation, or no, because actually it phases in during Phoenix's upkeep, so you replenish the loyalty on it by that point. You just don't go plus on loyalty with this play. I'm super surprised that Braid did not also throw the Crom in front of the construct, because by throwing the Crom in front of the construct, you can actually just kill it outright, and then you can recast the Crom for the command zone, especially with all the treasures that you have lying around. So I'm not super sure why that wasn't the block that was made. Especially because
Phoenix is explaining this to Ian as well.
Yeah. Especially because the Burgie can still block the Valky, and Ian doesn't have any hasty creatures to the best of anybody's knowledge, so.
So we are about an hour into this game. How are you feeling about it so far, Sick?
This is definitely a demonstration of what happens when multiple people are playing Chalice of the Voids. Things just tend to slow down. I mean, it's also a demonstration of what happens when like everybody mulligans to Oblivion as well, I'd say, and keeps greedy hands with basically no lands in it. But you know, it also goes to show sort of the power of what Tymna does in stacked out boards, because that's the only real reason why Braden's still in this game, right? Is just because like early Tymna, slam it, draw like 3 more cards than everybody else every turn.
Right. Yeah, this is why when I say that, you know, Mox Opal is good, or Jesus, Tymna is good, I mean it. So Ian casts the Mox Opal.
Or he's taking it back. Okay. Okay.
Well,
sorry.
he has to do his Tingle Wire.
I was surprised if the Mox Opal actually goes back into the pool, because Fenix is actually allowed to stack his triggers in a way such that you can just counter the Mox Opal and put it in the bin. Although I'm not sure, I guess, if that is super beneficial. Potentially not, but it is a potential line of play.
I mean, it does put Ian down to 2 if he casts. Well, I guess it
doesn't really do anything, because
so
nobody is actually going to be casting that Mox Opal ever. But, you know.
Right. So Ian is trying to figure out what he's doing. Now it looks like he missed his Tingle Wire.
Yeah, it looks like that's what he's resolving, I think. He might be thinking about it.
Yeah.
Doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
The tap should be easy, right? It's Tingle Wire and Chalice.
But so I'm not sure.
He's tapping.
Weird.
Okay. No, okay.
So I'm assuming the only reason you wouldn't untap there is because, or the only reason why you would tap down the static orb there is, I guess, to give Braden more mana. Because you definitely don't want Fenix untapping with both mana and blockers here with the lock in play. You want Fenix dying to combat damage soonish.
So he's trying to figure out how so he's allowing so Fenix can choose whether it gets countered by the Lavinia or goes under the knowledge.
He's not going to care.
He's just like, yeah,
that's going to get cast. The Vamp Tutor gets immediately countered because of his own Chalice. Braden draws a card. He has 2 cards for cast, or 2 spells for cast.
Well, it gets countered because of the Lavinia and the Chalice.
Yeah, all of the above.
Either one does it for you. Pick which effect you want. They both work.
Braden uptaking as well, doing some filtering.
Yeah. It feels like Braden is in the driver's seat at the moment.
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, the Hullbreacher is coming back next turn. Like, I guess theoretically the Teferi can keep it away forever. If you really want it to be gone forever, but that means you're not making progress on loyalty because you're going down by 3 and then going back up by 3 every turn cycle.
Right.
So I'm assuming Braden is doing some amount of just sculpting hand to eventually turn off the lock completely and then just be able to fight through whatever instance other people have. But,
right.
Yeah.
And there's a Teferi activation, so he's just digging and discarding Force of Will. Seems fine.
Yeah, definitely okay.
Force of Will seems really bad right now.
So actually, I guess this turn specifically, if Braden wants to go for it, he does have a turn where he can phase out the Lavinia as well here, and then go for a win under just Omen Pool and no Lavinia, no Hullbreacher. Which seems fine, honestly. Fenix is completely tapped out, so he's not going to have interaction for the most part. And
I think this is a situation, if I were in Fenix, where I actually probably would have gotten Omen Machine instead.
Yeah, I was honestly sort of thinking the same thing when he went for the Transmute for a lot of mana. This seems like an Omen Machine kind of setup, especially just to have the additional... And
you can break the parity with your Urza, too.
Yeah. Because there's a lot more that can go wrong here, especially with the, like, people can still draw cards, can still cast spells from, like, other places, from hands and stuff. Actually, I guess so. Fenix isn't completely tapped out. He does have the Omen Pool to tap to Urza, but it's still...
Right.
I think...
He's basically tapped.
Yeah, I think Braden's just looking at his options and seeing if he can piece together a win here through the Omen Pool. Because he does have an Oracle. He just needs to be able to access the Consult in some form or another. And there is... Yeah, the only issue here is that there is a force of negation in exile as well through the Omen Pool, so if anybody has an instant here, then he's going to have to fight through that, but...
So Hull Breacher phases back in tapped, which is really unfortunate.
Oh, is Braden just... Okay.
Braden passed. So Braden's just kind of hanging around.
So he's going to wait it out for another turn cycle or so. Interesting. So now things start to get awkward with that construct because it is bigger than your Crom and theoretically can get pretty big here anyway. The Teferi can...
So it's currently still a 5/5, correct?
The Teferi can phase it out, and I'm not up to date on my phasing rules. Pool trigger. Interesting to see what he's going to get here. Might just be getting Thoracle? Question mark?
So he's casting Enlightened Tutor into... So Enlightened Tutor, and he's telling Braden that he has the chance to respond here.
Yeah, so if we phase out the construct, it also kills it, but that means that you have to exist under Hull Breacher the same turn. Which I guess is theoretically fine if you're like looking to play the long game here anyway. There's not a lot that can get through to the Teferi through the Crom and the Broogie. 4/4 and 3/3 pretty good. Nobody has flyers.
So he is getting a treasure because Braden's going to activate the Teferi, uptick that. So the construct just keeps getting bigger.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this. Because the Teferi should be at 4 before that uptick, so I think I'm far...
He's recasting Transmute.
I'm a far bigger fan here of downticking on the construct to stop the pressure, because now if the construct swings, I mean, you have to block with both to kill it, or you have to throw the Broogie under the bus, which I'm not... Like, then at this point, you just throw a creature under the bus every turn, and I'd rather just like permanently deal with it, recast the Crom, and just be in a stable position, rather than having to constantly recast the Crom every turn just to chump it. And then eventually you run out of mana. And then you're in a race between, like, when, like, can I find a win before I run out of Crom casts? Period.
So there's a Yawgmoth's Will under Braden's Omen or Knowledge Pool, by the way.
Yeah.
Listening to the talk. And so Fenix is trying to cast the Yawgmoth's Will with the Enlightened Tutor. Mental misstep. Excuse me, Yawgmoth's Will is in Sages.
This looks weird. I'm not sure if... Because you can't misstep this before... Like, Phoenix doesn't declare targets until it gets countered.
He's in Lightning Tutoring, and so the misstep was targeting the Enlightened Tutor.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you don't have to... You don't have to target the card that you're casting, so there's no guarantee that he's getting the Yawg Will here.
Right.
I think this priority seems
based on what
messy,
I'm listening to is he wanted to make sure he couldn't get the odds well.
Sure. So if this is being done as just like a safety play of just like even before Fenix does any match have the Yogg World, just counter it and like steal it back, this should be okay. But yeah.
So he's gonna grab a Thassa's Oracle, and that's a land. It's Exotic Orchard, the other card in there.
Yep,
is what it looks like.
So taking the Thassa's Oracle makes this a lot harder for Braden.
Interesting. We are an hour and 7 minutes into it, and it's been an interesting one, wouldn't you say?
It has. God, yeah, the more I think about it, the more I really, really liked blocking the construct last turn with the Crom and the Dockside, because that means that last turn you actually could have killed Ian and unlocked yourself from the Static Orb as well.
Right.
Gives you a fair number of options here. I guess theoretically you may still want Fenix around, but like, like if Fenix, if you as Braden think that Fenix is better under the Static Orb, then theoretically Fenix should also think that he's better under the Static Orb, which means that this construct should just be coming at Ian and killing him immediately.
Right.
Either that or neither of them wants the other one unlocked first, which I mean is reasonable, but
is also fair.
I feel like there's like an amount of asymmetry at this point in sort of where people are positioned at this table that like I feel like one of them should want Ian dead. I can't imagine that they both think
he already did or did he take that back? I think he took that back and okay, that makes more sense.
And did we not see the... Okay, perfect. Yeah, we're seeing the construct swing here. So this has to be either going at the Teferi or killing Ian. Looks like it's killing Ian.
It killed Ian. Yep. Which seems reasonable.
Yeah. I think I probably would have been... I think the more consistent line of play here is to do the swing last turn. And then wait until the construct gets big enough to swing through the Dockside plus the Crom the next turn. But I mean, this also works. You're just now, you're a bit slow on killing the Teferi, and there's a very real chance now that because you didn't pressure the Teferi this turn, it gets to tick up, and suddenly it down ticks on the construct one turn, and then starts like down ticking to phase out the Hull Breacher and stuff later on.
The nice thing is here, though, this does limit how many activations that Teferi does get.
Yep.
So he's only going to get 2 pluses if that's the line.
That is actually very reasonable. Is now you can't infinitely keep stuff away. Like you can't infinitely play keep away with the Hull Breacher. You're losing 1 every turn if you're just continuously phasing stuff out. So,
right. Man, what a weird game.
Yeah. That's sort of how Omen Pool stuff goes most of the time when there's like an established board state, right? Like it's when there's stuff with activated abilities in play, stuff starts to get very weird very quickly.
This looks about like what an average Lavinia game looks like. Like just absurd. Lots of very odd situations. Now, Sage does get to cast 1 CMC spells again. However, there is the knowledge pool.
Yep.
So
I mean, Sage is out. Sage is out here is hitting 2 more land drops, sacking Valky to the Phantasmal Image copy, and then recasting it as Tybalt to bypass the knowledge pool and then down tick, presumably on either the knowledge pool or the Lavinia to break the lockup completely.
Man, that really does get around it, doesn't it?
Certainly does.
So we are on her turn and their turn, and they're passing the turn. And Mana Vault is still tapped. Braden might just die to the Mana Vault.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't completely put it out of possibility, but I have a fairly strong inclination that this game is probably going to end before that becomes a real thing.
More than likely. And uptick on the Teferi, which seems reasonable. Discarding
land. Yeah, there we go.
Land,
pain land instead of not pain land makes sense. Play the training grounds.
Luxury suite.
Luxury suite?
Yeah.
Training center, luxury suite. I don't know. It looks blue to me for some reason. Whatever. Yeah, so we're gonna see Kraxin at Phoenix. Yeah, okay. This is what I'm.
Two at Phoenix, one at Sage, or 3 at Sage. Excuse me.
Get the draws here. This is what I was sort of talking about and being like super not happy with the not early block on that construct, because this immediately becomes awkward now with the like you're swinging out with your what would be chump blockers, and now the construct is presumably going to be swinging at your Teferi, and you have to start blocking it with Crom.
The construct is still a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Still just a 5/5.
Is bigger than Crom.
It is bigger than Crom. That is correct.
There is still a divining top under the Omen pool, so there's the possibility for there to be a sort of fun combat trick if you just cast an instant and then put in the top and get it up to a 6/6.
So Hull Breacher is back.
So a sort of funny dynamic in this game right now is because basically any spell that you cast triggers Crom due to like the initial cast and the Omen pool cast going through. And because Crom is a mandatory trigger, if Braden doesn't continuously get rid of this Hull Breacher, every spell that somebody casts, or like the first spell somebody casts in their turn is just going to generate a Mox Sapphire and grow the construct.
Oh my gosh. That's not
so
good.
As soon as Phoenix casts like any spell, it immediately becomes a 6/6 and potentially a 7/7 with the Sensei's Divining Top.
Right. Wow. So let's see what is going to happen here. You might just be wanting to just throw stuff into the pool, even if it gets countered, just to make Braden have to get those triggers and grow your construct.
Well, you only have to throw like one thing per turn into the pool, right? Like it's not a huge issue. So and that can actually be a combat trick as well with an instant here. So you can actually, Braden blocks.
Construct is coming at Teferi.
Good block. Now, all we need to see basically to lock this game up, like pretty much immediately, would just be a Drannith. Now that Crom is in the command zone, Drannith is effectively game over. Lights out. Honestly, I'm sort of a little surprised that we didn't see the Thoracle also swing at the Teferi here.
That would have been good.
It seems like free damage.
Ooh. There is a sword.
All right. This is weird because there's a very real chance that we see like I don't know. Actually, I guess you can never. Yeah, you can't. Okay, never mind. You can't. Unfortunately, you can't finagle your way into like some phase out shenanigans to eventually cast this swords targeting the Lavinia and break up the lock. Just because she has to be out of play in order to actually get it on the stack in the first place. But yeah.
All right, there's a top there for Phoenix.
Yep.
Oh, that could be very bad because if Braden upticks the next 2 turns, phases out the Lavinia, then you can. I guess you can't do the. You were just saying that. I'm an idiot.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So.
Oh, it looks like they actually.
Mana Crypt goes in.
Actually. Oh, weird. Yeah. So it looks like Phoenix actually might have missed that the Crom thing was a thing that could happen. Just because, sort of didn't realize that he just swung in beforehand and sort of got rid of the Crom before casting anything.
In Phoenix's defense, this is the first time he has played Lavinia in paper.
I see. Phoenix getting his own static orb.
A while. Which he can break parity with that.
This one is an asymmetrical one. The last one wasn't. This one is.
Yep.
Not quite
that
as
it on
good
top.
as having a Tangle Wire in play, but this definitely limits Braden's ability to do things in general.
The good news, though, is you're putting this on top. You could just activate with Urza and cast it.
Urza shuffles before revealing, unfortunately.
Oh, I guess it does, yeah.
Yeah.
Tabernacle as land for turn.
Not bad. Not great, but not bad.
Okay, giving Fenix a treasure. He's
starting a land,
ditching a Misty Rainforest.
Now you're in a place where you really like this. You can't really meaningfully make headway with this Teferi, unfortunately, just because of the number of attackers that can come through every turn now, especially with the Omen Keel. Right. I mean, there wasn't an Omen Keel attack this turn, but next turn, like even if you get rid of the construct, we can see like Thoracle plus Omen Keel plus potentially something else come in, which is not fun. And if you do get rid of the construct, then I think. No, I guess that isn't enough because it'll be up to 6, go down to 3. So you can just block the Thoracle, but yeah.
There's a lot of really awkward math.
Yeah, I mean, I think like there may be reasons why he's not targeting the construct as heavily as I would have, but it just seems like a real thorn in the side right now that it's just like pressuring every turn, and like you're effectively you're only like as soon as that Teferi goes away, you just lose the game, right? Because it's the only thing like keeping you in the realm of being able to cast things.
Right. Card that would be pretty good in this specifically in this scenario for Lavinia would be a Karn Scion of Urza. So then you could make another construct and really put the pressure on.
Definitely wouldn't be bad.
Fortunately, we don't play it. We play the other Karn.
Oh, tragic.
I've thought about playing it. I feel like it's a little bit.
You know what would be fantastic here, actually? Even better than that Karn would be an Ephemerate. Just blink ears of twice, get 2 more constructs.
Let's go.
Seeing an uptick here. Oh, wait, down tick? Okay.
Phasing out Lavinia.
Looks like he's going for it then. I don't know what he has access to in his hand, but the Omen Pool piles are not looking great right now for initial casts.
There's a swords in there. Casting a vamp. Which will probably get the swords to get rid of the construct.
Potentially construct, potentially Urza, one of the two. It might actually even be going for Hull Breacher here.
A Hull Breacher.
I think if you're going for it this turn, because this puts the Teferi in like very solid this is dying this turn range.
Right.
So you might just get rid of the Hull Breacher and then like try to do cast shenanigans. Oh my god.
Sage is casting a desperate ritual. Oh no.
Is this going to be stealing the swords out from underneath? Oh, what's... Oh, is that still a Yawgmoth's will? What is... Oh, it's a Necropotence. I would assume that was what Braden was aiming for with this.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Okay. So seems fair. All right, getting a mana crypt off of that. Man. I really think what this all comes back down to is I think if I'm Fenix in this position with this board state, I might have gone for Omen Machine instead of Knowledge Pool. I think this game is over turns ago if he gets on the machine.
It's like because it doesn't allow for any of this nonsense with like trying to cobble together a win off of what's in exile and like what like stuff in your hand and stuff. And it's also like a second Hull Breacher that you can't phase out, so like it just immediately shuts down the Teferi completely. Like you don't get to do any of the like playing around with like flickering out the Hull Breacher and like taking up Teferi a couple of times and getting more card selection and whatever. Like it just stops that in its tracks. You never get to profit cards off of Teferi ever. And like you're at some point you don't have cards to discard anymore to Teferi. And you're just like flickering stuff every turn.
That Teferi has put in a lot of work this game though.
Yeah, I mean it's just like one of those cards that's pretty good at keeping things from, or like keeping your like chances sort of alive under Omen Pool Lavinia.
Right. I gotta say, whether Fenix lives or dies, this has been a good showing for Lavinia. I have had much worse Lavinia games, but I will at least be happy that Lavinia at least looks to be doing all right.
Mm-hmm.
Going to combat. Bergie at Sage, not going to swing the Tymna at Fenix, considering Fenix has
enough power,
a wall of dudes, and does not get to draw the card because of Hull Breacher, so growing the construct.
Not like it matters at this point. You don't really have meaningful anything right now. Your Teferi is low enough where you can just attack through it. Is that
Demonic Consultation, which will go into. All right.
So I'll go into Omen Pool. Is there a gamble in Omen Pool?
Okay, so in response, so what he's doing is in response to the Tymna trigger cast Demonic Consultation, casting the swords.
Oh, on the Hull Breacher. Okay, gotcha.
Hitting the Hull Breacher.
And drawing the card. Okay.
If you're looking at his hand, he did show a little bit of his hand. It looks like there's a Wheel of Misfortune in there.
Yeah, not super surprised. That is sort of something that I was thinking could be a possibility.
Ooh, Underworld Breach could get him there.
Breach. He has an LED in the bin that we know about. And all of this bypasses Omen Pool triggers because you're not casting from your hand. And his graveyard has been getting pretty stacked from Teferi activations, so wouldn't be surprised if this just gets there. We know that he also has a Dawn Tutor in his bin with the LED. So this should just win. He is playing Brain Freeze, so
let's see what's going on. So Underworld Breach is in there.
So obviously you have to go through the intermediary step of putting it into the pool and then taking it out of the pool. But,
right.
If you have any spell to cast here, you should just win the game as long as you can.
What did he cast off of it? Did he just cast nothing?
I
don't think he cast anything.
It is a May trigger. You don't have to cast anything off of the Knowledge Pool.
That's interesting. Going to play Crom. Okay.
Really?
So I don't think he's going for it.
That's so weird. Like, obviously, I think there's concern here that like Fenix might steal it out from under in the pool from under him. But like in that case, why cast it at all? Right? Like
Wheel of Misfortune.
First, and then Wheel of Misfortune. That's so weird to me. Looks like.
So, in response, Sage casts Expedite.
Yeah, the issue here is if you take the Underworld Breach. Actually, this is sort of hilarious. So if you take the Underworld Breach,
it does kind of solve it.
I don't think Breach goes away in other people's end steps. Oh no,
it goes away on your end step.
It is at the beginning of any end step. Okay, that could have been sort of funny and hilarious and interesting, but it is not to be.
Oh well.
But yeah, I mean, we'll see how many instants Braden has to get this breach pushed through somehow.
Unsubstantiate. Okay. Targeting Wheel of Misfortune.
Doesn't matter because it's going into exile.
Right.
Well, not in exile yet. If somebody else has... Oh my god.
So he's doing this in response to Sage's Expedite.
Looks like Sage has more to cast. There's a Seething Song.
The Pyretic Seething Song. Jesus.
Crom Trigger. This might be why he cast the Crom. There's a Pyroblast in response. It's actually free because of Bergie.
Right, and you have to target something, though.
Pyroblast can target your own thing, like your Crom or the Urza or whatever.
Right.
Ball Writ.
And I think Braden might be able to win.
Yeah, so there's a Cabal Writ.
I don't remember what's all in his graveyard, though.
In response here. Fenix has to be super happy about this. He hasn't cast anything this turn, so potentially he might still be sandbagging instance.
No, he has no.
Oh,
cards
he has
in
no
hand.
cards in hand. Wow. Then
Yeah,
this
this
is crazy.
I think did we miss a Tabernacle trigger?
Potentially.
I think we did.
Anyway, Braden was definitely not expecting this number of instants out of Sage.
Sage, yeah. So they're readdressing like where Storm Count is, really kind of what's going on here. So, which is fair. A lot has happened on this turn.
The issue here is if you're Sage and you get this breach, what's your win here? Like, you can obviously eventually break the pool, but you need to survive the construct hitting you, and you're under a necropot. Like, you're under your own necropotence now.
Right.
Okay, so you have a breach.
So they got a breach.
Do they have a removal spell in the graveyard that I'm missing?
No, but an unsubbed is going in there.
So that's going to Braden's bin. I'm talking about like just Sage of anything in the graveyard, because that theoretically allows them to cast, like if they had like an Abrade or something, then they could Abrade out of the bin with this breach in play to get rid of the Omen pool. But if they don't, then this is going to be
getting gamble
awkward
here.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So with this gamble, oh, Braden's resolving a gamble.
Yes, Braden is resolving a gamble because they so when Cabal Ritual was the last card on the stack, so the next card on the stack was that Pyroblast, and that was getting the gamble.
So
although I think the Pyroblast should be under the pool, not in his graveyard.
Yeah, it should be in the pool right now. But anyway, I feel like nobody's going to be casting.
This is why we need lifeguards, man.
So Sage needs, some type of like tutor and some extra mana, because there's no mana here.
2 cards in hand. Okay, Flooded Strand is the land that he is discarding. Next spell is the Seething Song.
Goes into exile.
Demonic Consultation and 2 counter spells. They're naming Demonic Consultation. Interesting.
Consult for... So you can't breach winded instant speed, but you can... Again, consult for a removal spell?
They are naming ad nauseum.
Yikes.
Flipping over, let's see. Peer into the Abyss was in there. Mana Vault. There's 2 more. Wishclaw. It was not in there, so we'll see what they hit.
Yeah, I don't think Ad Nause does it here, unfortunately. You're only going to be able to cast it on your turn when the video lock is already back in play, and you don't have any eminent way of getting rid of it anymore, unless you make like 2 more land drops. And the entire time here,
and there's an Oz.
Yeah, I don't know.
Next is the unsub. Casting Cabal Ritual from Sage's Pool. Okay. See, and this is kind of the danger of casting those rituals into this, is you're now giving Braden a bunch of cards. Now the Wheel of Misfortune's going in.
It's actually really tragic that this is now substantiate and not something like a Windsor Rebuke or a Cyclonic
Snap.
Rift. No, not a Snap, actually. It's not a Winds or a Cyclonic Rift, because line of play here could be, now that you have the mana again, recast your Wheel of Misfortune, get the bounce spell, bounce the Breach.
Braden, what are you doing? That goes into the pool, my guy.
Which is relevant. But it would be cast this, get the bounce spell, bounce the Breach back to your hand, Breach to put it back in the pool, and then cast the card that you gambled to put the Breach back into play on your side of the board.
I see what you're saying.
If that was another bounce spell. But unfortunately, it's not. So we're seeing a Demonic Betrayal instead, which is what I'm assuming the black mana was for.
Right. Mnemonic Betrayal. This Mnemonic Betrayal, especially with there being a Windsor, or with the 2 spells in his graveyard that are not supposed to be there, is problematic.
I mean, so it's not an issue for stuff being in Braden's bin, because Mnemonic Betrayal doesn't.
Well, I guess it's
see
opponents, isn't it?
But he's casting the Unsubstantiate. I don't.
Unsub is targeting Bergie. Okay.
He's looking to recast the Bergie, then cast.
What do you
cast a Mnemonic Betrayal? I don't think there's enough here.
Like, what's I guess so. Sage does have a Yogswill in the bin, and a bunch of rituals.
Actually, so that Yawgmoth's Will does make this an issue, that he has cards in his bin that shouldn't be there, because
because there are 2 cards. The Pyroblast and the Wheel of Misfortune should not
they should
be in the
exile
graveyard
here.
We are professionals. Do not mind us.
I don't know what. I don't know what he's thinking about here. If you cast the other side, like, casting the other side doesn't do anything except it just costs 2 extra mana.
He does have cards in hand anyhow.
You get, well, and also it's not resolving. It's going into the pool no matter what. So I don't know why you'd be considering casting the other half here. Or did he just take it out by accident and is trying to get it back into his sleeve? I understand that. If that's the case.
Been there.
It looks like he's thinking. I don't know what you think on here. Yeah, it's... seems...
I mean, you cast the front side of Burgie.
It's pretty cut and dry. You cast front side of Burgie, you're locked into casting it. Like, the Mnemonic Betrayal is your line that you've gone for.
Did he just cast the backside?
That doesn't resolve.
So,
did he just realize that? Okay. Probably just, great. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Mnemonic Betrayal.
I'm not sure why he cast the more expensive side.
Yeah, I don't think he did. I think he rolled that one back. Okay. Yeah. That one exiles itself. He has probably enough to recast that Cabal Ritual, which it looks like it's something that's going to happen here. Unfortunately, the Bergie would make this a lot cleaner if he could somehow get it back out.
Right.
But, he can't, so he'll have to deal with it.
He's casting a Yawgmoth's Will.
So he needs to. Yeah. I mean, so you cast the rituals out of Sage's Bin, first of all, just as like an order of business, just to get them out and get the mana in your hand.
Oh, he's casting his Dockside.
Makes sense here. You need to find. Okay, so you unsub your Unthorical.
You cast Demonic Consultation and just win. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you have to have another card, but you have a detutor in your bin anyway, so you can detutor for any spell that costs a reasonable.
Do you need another card?
Yeah, because
it's it doesn't go into the pool.
Why not?
Because you're not casting it from your hand.
You'd be casting the Thoracle from your hand because you're bouncing it.
So you just
you put the Thoracle in the pool. You find literally anything with the detutor that's in your bin. Cast it out of the pool, and then cast the console out of your bin.
Right. Well, that wraps things up there. So Braden did take that one home, although there were a couple cards in the graveyard that shouldn't have been there. It didn't end up mattering. So, here as we're wrapping things up, what was kind of your takeaway on that game?
Sort of say, but I feel like that game is completely indicative of the other side of Lavinia that nobody talks about, which is that putting an open pool into play doesn't exactly win the game 100% of the time.
Yeah, knowledge pool doesn't always win you the game. But it's. I'll have a stern talking to with Fenix. He absolutely should have gotten Omen Machine. That game would have been probably would have been over a while ago, because he's gonna just be like the Enlightened Tutor that's in his hand. He can just cast that, put literally Static Orb on top, or Smothering Tithe, or whatever you want, and just, go, all right.
Smothering Tithe of the Omen Machine seems like a bit of a non-bow, but
I guess it's, but, or you put like a Marius Call on top, and you cast that.
Sure. I mean, you just put like a good artifact or enchantment on top, and just get there. Yeah.
I guess a Marius Call isn't a creature or an enchantment, but you get what I'm saying. So that about wraps things up here for us. Any final thoughts here before we head out?
No, I mean, it was that honestly just seemed like a 4-color meta deck just beaten up on some helpless young small uncared for 2-color decks, but that's the cEDH that we all love.
Yeah. Well, that wraps things up for us today. Just a quick reminder that you can follow us on Twitter at @SculptyBoys, or you can find a direct link in our link tree in the description below. I want to also give an extra thanks to all of our patrons who help keep the lights on around here. If you too would like to become a patron, you can head on over to patreon.com/TheMindSculptors, or check out the link in the description. And also need to make sure I add this to our script. Make sure that if you're buying any cards, you check out our TCG Player affiliate link in the description below as well. We do get a little bit of that kickback, and we greatly appreciate it if you help the show out in that way as well. Thank you again for joining us, and from all of us here at The Mind Sculptors, I'm Callahan, and we'll see you next time.